Inflation, your savings' biggest enemy, and here's how to beat it. Meet Sharma ji. He loves his morning walks and never forgets to drink his favorite masala chai at the street corner. He's been drinking chai at the same chaiwala since 1980. No wonder he proudly regales stories of how the tea was sold at just ₹2 when he first started drinking tea at the shop. Of course, how over the years the price of chai has risen and the cup has shrunk, thanks to inflation. So, what is inflation? Inflation, in simple words, refers to the rise in the price of product and services over time. It affects every aspect of life: food, clothing, education, homes, travel, healthcare, gadgets, etc. For instance, if your monthly expense for groceries, maintenance bills and leisure is about ₹30,000 in 2020, it won't be enough to meet the expenses 5 years from now. So, if we assume a 7% rate of inflation, you will need about ₹42,000 in 2025, ₹59,000 in 2030 and ₹1,16,000 in 2040. But before you brush this aside with the simple logic that prices tend to rise over time, consider this. Is your income increasing at the same rate, if not faster? Yes? No? Sometimes? If your answer is a no or sometimes, then unlike Sharma ji, you won't be able to indulge in your favorites the same way. You will soon be faced with serious questions. What will I have to give up to prevent going into debt? How will rising costs change my lifestyle? And if these issues occur while you still have a job, can you even imagine the struggle after you retire, especially if you rely solely on what you save? Inflation can be your savings' biggest enemy, but it doesn't need to. Be like Sharma ji, who managed inflation by choosing investment solutions that potentially offered higher returns. He wasn't a financial wizard. He didn't do any investment mumbo-jumbo. All it took was a little planning and some discipline. He invested a small amount every month throughout his career in investment options that returned more than the rate of inflation. Some SIPs in mutual fund schemes, asset allocation moves, and voila! You, like Sharma ji, can enjoy your chai throughout your life. You may consult your investment advisor to make sure your investments grow faster than the rate of inflation. An investor education and awareness initiative of Aditya Birla Sun Life Mutual Fund. Mutual fund investments are subject to market risks. Read all scheme-related documents carefully.
Hello and welcome to Kolkata semi-finals of Businessline Boardroom Challenge 2023. I am Srimati Sridharan. Businessline Boardroom Challenge, a unique competition for B-Schoolers, has 3 levels: a preliminary round, a semi-final across 8 cities and a grand finale. The online tests in the prelims tested students' decision-making skills and ability to work in teams. In the semi-finals, the students got the chance to meet and compete with the best minds from top B schools across the country and present their strategies. And in finals, students will showcase their skills by solving a live corporate case. Now without further ado, let's jump right into it. I now request Mr. Vinay Kamath from Businessline to take over.
Welcome all to the BL Boardroom Challenge 2023. I am Vinay Kamath of Businessline. This unique case challenge for B-Schoolers is in its 7th year. In the first year of the challenge, in 2017, Liba Chennai was the winner, followed by ISB Hyderabad in 2018 and IIM Ranchi in 2019. SIBM Pune won the contest in 2020, while IIM Shillong won in 2021 and SPJMR in 2022. Till the 2019 edition, the semi-final rounds of the contest were held across 8 cities at B schools which hosted the event. The preliminary round has always been online, where students are administered a psychometric test to assess their decision-making skills and ability to work in teams. The grand finale, where B schools which won city-specific semi-finals competed for the grand prize, had in earlier years been held in Chennai. From the year 2020, keeping in mind the safety of the students and others involved in this contest during the pandemic, it has been conducted entirely online, including the semi-final rounds and the finals as well. This year too, we are conducting the event online, given its efficacy as a convenient medium where students don't need to spend time traveling to various destinations. The semi-finals case will test the participating teams on the knowledge of finance, marketing and strategy and decision-making skills and ability to work in teams. The BL Boardroom Challenge is a unique event which has become part of the calendar of contests for B schools. May the best team win the 2023 BL Boardroom Challenge. All the best.
To outline the case for the semi-finals, each of the teams had to take on a role of a consulting company that has a huge knowledge in the EV area. The task for the planning team is to make a 5-year business plan for a newly established company. This company, named Green Mobility India, is a subsidiary of a renewable energy giant. The participant have to facilitate its entry into the electronic vehicles market. They would need to present the dynamics and therefore qualitative and quantitative inputs if green energy can proceed in the EV space or not. The business plan if it feels the company should enter the field. Real impact of the EVs on the environment considering cradle to grave impact compared to ICE and hybrid. Understanding consumer preferences and secondary sources and projecting the market scenario for 5 years. Projected progress of charging infrastructure and its impact on penetration of EVs. Each team will get 15 minutes to present their case and will be followed by 5 minutes of questions and answers. The team will be marked for 50 points by each jury member. The team with the highest total wins. Here is the breakup. Understanding of case points 10. Case analysis 15. Solution 10. Presentation 10. Teamwork 5. Now it's over to the teams presenting today.
Team number 1, and it consists of myself, Arvind, Ashwin, and Harshit Somani. Ashwin, can you move to the next slide? Right, so when we started addressing this issue of whether green mobility should enter the EV segment, so we created a issue tree wherein first we evaluated 2 aspects. First being the economic feasibility, and the second one being the operational and strategic feasibility. So in the economic feasibility, we looked at market analysis, financial, long-term sustainability, and risk management. Ashwin, can you move on to the next slide? In the operational feasibility, we broke down the entire value chain, starting from their R&D, their procurement, their manufacturing, inbound and outbound logistics, distribution, marketing, and after sales. Now, when we decided on whether to enter the market, like we also had to look at how we are going to enter the market, and we found 4 ways of doing it. First one being outsourcing, second one being brownfield investments, wherein like we acquire a particular plant that's already there. Then we have greenfield investments, wherein like we'll be creating a new plant on our own or a joint venture. So we evaluated all these aspects. Then we also had to look at the financing options. So there were 3 options that we had to look into. First one being self-financing, second the debt financing, and third one is equity-based financing. Now, this slide gives an overview of the EV market. So we had to question ourselves on why EVs were important at this point. So we recognized 3 main aspects which makes EVs a pivotal thing at this point. First one being climate change. Second one being depleting resources, that is fossil fuels, and the third one being the vulnerability of Indian economy towards the changes in the prices of oil. Now, again, another question popped out, whether this was the right time for EV adoption. So we looked at 3 facts. First one being whether we had proper demand for this particular product. Then we looked at whether it was feasible to conduct business over here. And the third one is the technological feasibility as well. So when we looked at all 3 aspects, all of them were available in India. Now, then we looked at the opportunities in the EV segment. So we saw multiple schemes by the government which they were pushing so that like we have adoption. Right now, India has a cold start problem in the EV industry, wherein there is a lack of EV brands. Then there's also a lack of production of EV components by local brands. then the charging infrastructure, and the high cost of EVs in general. So these are the four problems that were there. And all these problems are being addressed by the FAME subsidies that the governments, both the central and state governments, which are offering. Now, then we looked at which aspect of the EV segment would be the most important, and we've identified battery to be the most important aspect. So this particular chart has the EBITDA margin for all the different value chain in the EV segment. So you have cell manufacturing, the battery manufacturing segment, electrical systems, software, other components, and the remaining, which are after production. Can you move on? Now, then we looked at the first aspect, that is electric two-wheeler segment, that is E2W segment. So this particular segment has been growing at a CAGR of around 45%, and it's expected to reach around 5.7 million. That is a higher estimate, and it could go as low as 3.2 million. So these were the estimates that we got from forecasts. And the current market leader in this particular segment is Ola. Now, we looked at the distribution channel and the gaps in the market. So there were some innovations in this particular segment in the distribution, wherein 85% of the consumers preferred looking at the products online rather than going to this dealership. So over here, there's a whole overwhelming aspect of online presence that is required. But after the initial search, 80% of the consumers preferred to go to the store and then buy the product. So any particular brand which plans on entering should have both an online and an offline, which means an omni channel presence. The gaps in the market were that there's a lack of charging infrastructure that can be addressed by either building our own charging infrastructure or battery swapping. Then we also had flexible vehicle access as an issue. So right now, there are multiple ways in which you can buy a product. So either that is direct purchase or a leasing method or of the battery alone. Now, this segment was further broken down into three parts. First one is the high-speed scooters, second one is low-speed scooters, and third one being high-speed motorcycles. Can you move on? Now, one more aspect that I missed from the previous slide is that the fact that in the E2W segment, the brand loyalty was substantially less. So new players could enter easily. That's how Ola became a major player in that, whereas the traditional players like Hero and Bajaj, they are trailing behind. So moving on to the E3-wheeler segment. Now, again, this is a segment that has been growing, but not as much as the E2W segment. The segment is led by Bajaj and Piaggio Motors. So these are traditional players who already have established brand presence. Now, then again, like we looked at the distribution system and the gaps in the market. So for the innovation that they had brought in this distribution segment is the fact that over here, they allowed traditional dealerships, whereas they also had direct to customers sales, wherein they had pop-up stores where people can purchase and then buy it. And primarily, these products were used for business. So this was oriented towards B2B segment. Because of that, they had a leasing model as well, wherein like you can lease the product for a certain period and then return it back or work for them. Now, the gaps in the market is that this product is primarily oriented towards food and grocery delivery or goods delivery. That's how it has been used in major metros. The scope of it could be evolving into automobiles, as in like the auto segment as well. Now, there's also scope for mobility as a service, wherein as in like it could be similar to leasing, but rather like it could be paid on a monthly basis. Then we also have retrofitting. So a lot of old vehicles whose ICE engines can be removed, and then like we can have electrification as well. Can you move on? Now, then we moved into the E4W segment, that is electric four-wheeler segment. Now, over here, this is a sort of a new as well as a saturated market. So the E4W market is relatively new and it's in its growth phase, whereas hybrid market, it's in its maturity phase. And the hybrid market has not seen a lot of growth in particular. It's kind of saturated. Now, we got the forecast for the E4W sales, and it's about to reach around 500,000 by 2030. And state-wise, Maharashtra is the state in which like a lot of sales is happening, and that can be attributed to the fact that like there is a more charging infrastructure in Maharashtra and Karnataka. Those are the top two states. Then the market penetration, though we have a lot of advertisements running for this particular segment, the penetration has been less, and that could be attributed to the fact that the initial cost or the investment that is being made to procure this particular product is significantly high compared to the alternative, that is ICE engines. And the market is led by Tata Motors. Again, it's a traditional player, which means that it's going to be hard for any new entrant to enter this market, this and the E3W segment. Now, the key consumer preference insight that we got in this segment is that the premium that you pay upward or in the beginning can be recuperated after a period of 10 years. So the key in this particular segment is to convince the buyer that this is a long-term investment, and once you reach a certain threshold, that's when you start to get the gains, and the gains would be substantial. So the message has not been passed on, and we have the scope of doing that in this segment. Should move.
Oh, yeah. From this slide onwards, I would go ahead and explain certain other aspects like the cost of ownership and about the subsidies and about the charging infrastructure. Arvind spoke about what are the advantages of EV to the environment, how there is like need to move towards an electric mobility infrastructure. But what is in it for the consumers? Because consumers feel that the cost of acquiring EV is very high. But upon researching, we understood that there's one particular term called TCO, which means total cost of ownership. And when total cost of ownership of two-wheelers or three-wheeler EVs or four-wheelers EVs also for that matter is compared across their lifetime, this involves everything, including the initial investment required, the insurance, the fuel cost, the cost of maintenance, and the salvage value. We understood that it was comparatively much lesser for a like EV than a IC engine vehicle. This was because in EV, the highest investment that was required was for the principal, for the initial cost that you need to invest in order to buy the vehicle. But for the two-wheeler passenger ICEs, initial cost, though it was lesser, the energy and the fuel costs were much higher, and the cost required to operate the vehicle and sustain it for a particular period of time was very high. And this was not just for this comparison is for India, but this is not just for India. Across this is something that's been there across the world, even in California and other states in the USA. And one thing we have realized is that though the total cost of ownership is lower, in the end consumer's mind, they often attribute things to the initial investment that is required. But even that is coming down after the subsidy. A lot of existing ICE model vehicles and similar EVs were compared. And it was realized that after the subsidy, the cost of acquiring a similar EV model vehicle is coming much lesser than an ICE vehicle. And this is expected to go down further. How would it go? That I would explain in the next slide. I hope my EV charging infrastructure slide is visible now. So in this slide, we talk about a major roadblock to EV growth in India, which is the charging infrastructure. Right now, based on the data that was given in the case, we understood that the current charging is to vehicles ratio is 1:135. Basically, there's one charging station for 135 EVs, whereas a global average, when we researched on internet, came to around 1:20 to 1:25, depending on the kind of country. So even if we assume that 1:40 would be a good ratio in future, an ideal ratio in future, we need to add 4 lakh charging stations, close to 4 lakh charging stations every year to achieve that target. And this is obviously expected to go down with improvement in charging infrastructure, improvement in utilization of charging stations and fast charging in future. But right now, this is the figure, and there are a lot of roadblocks to this. One thing we understood is that since the penetration of EV is going higher and higher every year, the charging infra is not currently matching up to it. And if it does not match up to it, there might be a bubble burst sort of a situation. So EV charging infrastructure should also match to it. And for that, a lot of private investment is also required, and a lot of private pays are currently coming. But there are a few challenges. The major ones include inadequate power grid. So the existing power source required for these charging stations itself seems to be inadequate. So what do we need to do to address this? Private investment is also required, and government also needs to understand how fastly renewable energy sources can be integrated to fuel these EVs. Otherwise, the real social impact or environmental impact would be much lesser, is what we feel. The second major roadblock is the lack of space. In EV, four-wheelers and two-wheelers are primarily used in urban areas and semi-urban areas where there is acute shortage of real estate for setting up these chargers. So we need to come up with multifunctional charging stations that are integrated with shopping malls and other office buildings where there is a lot of parking space. And there can also be shared charging stations at huge residential complexes and apartment buildings where a lot of EVs are already present. And third is battery technology. The current EV charging infrastructure faces roadblocks in the form of standardization and fast charging. So we need higher R&D investment in this particular segment, and also partnership with a lot of startups that are working to improve the battery infrastructure. We need to partner with them, and that would create synergy and bring down the cost in the long run. So what would be the impact of this? The data given in the case suggests that setting up a charging station is already profitable. So when our client is going forward and starting to produce EVs, it can also simultaneously invest on setting up charging stations. How many? That would be explained in the next slide. Economies of scale. Again, more charging stations would increase the ease of use of EVs. That would promote the EV demand more, and a lot of people using a lot of demand means again more production, and that would again bring down the cost. So brand awareness is another thing, because if you're starting to produce EVs right now, as mentioned by Arvind earlier, the EV four-wheeler market is dominated by the traditional players like Tata. So in order to penetrate and gain a basic market share, you need a lot of brand awareness. And as mentioned in the case, you need 3 times more effort and investment to gain the similar share of voice. So having our own EV charging infrastructure with our client's brand name would improve the brand awareness, is something we feel. Next, this is something we have understood what has been the state earlier and what needs to be the state in future in order to have a smooth and robust EV ecosystem. So what happens is if there is low demand for EVs, then companies will not be mass producing, but will be producing very less in numbers. That would lead to higher cost of production and higher selling price. And higher selling price would again mean low demand for EVs. This leads to a vicious cycle where things are going down and down. But an ideal method would be higher demand for EVs. And if there is higher demand, there would be mass production and economies of scale is achieved. That would lead to lower cost of production and lower selling price. And if there is lower selling price, it would be easier to penetrate the market. And then it will again lead to higher demand for EVs in comparison to other ICE vehicles. So how can this happen? Government is already giving twin subsidies, subsidy to buyers and subsidy to manufacturer. Subsidy to buyer is given on the basis of the battery capacity of vehicle currently. So this is already making EVs more affordable compared to ICE vehicles. And another subsidy that is being given is given to manufacturers in the form of tax exemption, cheaper rent, and other easier access to credit. So this again brings down the cost of manufacturing. And this is again pushing towards a lower selling price after achieving economies of scale.
15 minutes over.
Sorry.
Your 15 minutes is actually over, Ashwin Kumar.
Can I just take 2 minutes to conclude?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So this would help us create a robust ecosystem. And this is our business plan. This states in detail how much investment is required. After considering a lot of real life investment scenarios, we have arrived at this figure. And how much would be the incremental expenditure to maintain the production that we have suggested. How to invest in charging facilities. We have suggested 400 numbers because it is already profitable to even have one charging station. So this is something we have suggested. And in this slide, so more details about this business plan in the Excel sheet we have attached with our submission. But right now we'll move on to the real impact of EVs on the environment, a detailed study done by Harshit.
So we have compared battery electric vehicles with hybrid and IC combustion engine vehicles using cradle to grave approach in OpenLCA software. We were able to conclude that as of now, at this point, battery electric vehicles and plugged-in hybrid electric vehicles produce more negative environmental impact. And this is because most of the energy source is coming from fossil fuels in India. So according to Union Ministry, as of now, 22% of electricity is coming through renewable resources. And the Fuel Institute suggests that if at least 67% of electricity from non is from renewables, then battery electric vehicles will have a positive impact on environment as compared to IC combustion engines. So this target can be reached by 2031 according to Union Ministry. So from 2031, battery electric vehicles will have better positive impact on environment compared to IC combustion engine vehicles. So, Ashwin, would you like to conclude?
So this was our presentation, sir. Thank you. More details about our business plan has been given on Excel sheet. So it states all the detailed assumptions that we have taken and what is the basis that we have arrived on few numbers. And based on our business plan recommendation, we can start becoming profitable from year 1 onwards by optimizing the production of E, 2V, 3V, and 4V.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, guys. Again, nice presentation. A lot of information. Couple of things which I want to clarify is finally, what is your decision? You want to go for EV or
Yes,
you
sir.
are
We want to
suggesting
go.
something else?
We want to go for EV, and we want to the numbers that the company needs to produce in the form of 2-wheelers, 3-wheelers, 4-wheelers we have given based on how easy it is to penetrate in a certain market, and the growth of the same is also being given in the B plan slide and the Excel sheet. We have mentioned the assumptions in detail. So our final verdict is to go, but also to keep in mind the number of vehicles you'll be producing in order to not go at a loss, but also optimize the ease of penetration of market.
Yeah, I couldn't see that Excel file completely because hardly we had a few seconds to see that. So I just want
Can I
to
share it
pose some
again?
questions. No, don't worry about sharing it.
Yes,
Just answer my questions.
sure.
What is the kind of capital investment you are looking at overall? I mean, all put together, EV 2, 3, 4. And what is the kind of units, number of units? What is the kind of market share you are looking at? Can you just throw some light on that?
Yes, sir. Just a second.
Based on whatever analysis you have
Yes,
done
sir.
and
Based,
Excel sheet you have here.
yes, sir. Based on the analysis we have, we are looking for close to 800 crore investment in setting up the plant initially. And we are also assuming that 10% of this would be incurred every year to keep up with the production levels. So initially, on the first year, we would be selling close to 900 hybrid vehicles and close to 50,000 vehicles in total, EV, 2V, EV, 2-wheelers, 3-wheelers, and 4-wheelers. And all this would be coming at the market rate, which is
if your focus is on EV only, why you are selling hybrid vehicles then?
sir, we've realized that there is market for there is positive and negatives for both these segments, and there is also market for both these. So we want to start with a certain number, which we have understood based on ease of promoting and penetration. So based on that, we have suggested a certain number. So depending on how it picks up in future, we can also adjust the production and move, use the existing capacity to produce either more hybrid or more E4V, depending on what the future has.
What is your advice to the company right now, being a consultant?
Yes, sir. One advice is that start by focusing more on E2-wheeler segment, because that is where, again, what we feel is that two-wheelers is something people are buying for convenience. They're looking for lower cost, and average distance traveled is like 25 to 30 kilometers every day. So users are trying to optimize the cost, whereas four-wheelers users are trying to optimize their luxury and ease of travel. So in that, and they're looking for good brand and all of that. So it takes time to pick up and penetrate an E4-wheeler market, whereas two-wheeler, it is more easier based on the prices we are offering. So we'll start by focusing more on E2-wheelers, and as we gain the brand awareness, we'll focus on selling E4-wheelers and hybrid also.
What do you feel is the core strength of the company, Green Mobile?
So core strength, I feel, would be that we are trying to optimize the production in a way that they would start becoming profitable from the beginning itself. And given that we're also venturing into charging infrastructure, we're also setting up charging infra of our own. So I guess that would also give us a push in selling our electric vehicles.
Okay. Over to you, SK.
Okay. Mr. Gururaj asked you the question, the last question, the core this thing about green mobility. I'm not sure whether you read the case completely. The very first line, which clearly says that it's a wholly owned subsidiary of renewable energy chain,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
You spoke about government coming into renewable energy, etc., etc. I'm not sure how you are going to utilize the company's advantage of renewable energy. It's already there as a chain.
Yes.
How you are going to use it for your advantage or for the country's advantage, right? Anyway, the question was to understand whether you understood that. I don't think you really got that out. The question is, why are you going for charging stations? Are you not investing unwarrantedly in charging stations?
No, sir. Based on our understanding and our calculation, investing in charging station is directly giving us profits. Like even in investing in one charging station, executing it properly according to the financials given in the case, based on our calculation, directly giving us like profits. So we also feel that if we contribute to adding up more charging stations, we are also contributing the overall ecosystem, and also it is gaining brand awareness for our brand, because in our charging station we would again put green mobility and all of that. So that would also give us a push, is what we feel.
Okay. You know why we are actually focusing more on the numbers? Numbers is one part of it. The reason is the other slides which you presented,
Yes.
for a period of time you lost us. What happens is, when you have so much of data,
Okay.
and you're trying to throw all the data into a slide, it gets lost.
Okay.
See, that is where your slide should have been very clear in telling us what's the market for hybrid right now, whether it's parallel hybrid, whatever hybrid is, what is the market for ICE, and what is the market for EV in two-wheeler, three-wheeler, very simple terms.
Okay.
And the reason for you recommending these.
Okay.
Okay, that's where the confusion came when we came to the Excel sheet by saying you're pitching for EV, but you're showing hybrid there.
Okay.
You understand?
Okay.
So it is not. And next thing is, let me ask you a question. You know Bajaj, the two-wheeler organizations, they all are rolling out two-wheeler EVs, right? Have you ever seen a four-wheeler company rolling out a two-wheeler EV?
No.
So once you get into a two and three-wheeler mode, you are expecting suddenly shifting into the gear and to go into four-wheeler. The acceptance of the consumer is going to be very, very limited.
Okay.
Correct?
Yes.
And that is something which I don't know whether you have thought about it. One, right? Number two is that future, right? I'm not sure your numbers, because I'm not sure how you would be able to get 10% hike, or returns within the first year, right?
Yes.
And you are talking of only 800 crores investment, right?
800
Okay.
crore investment in the plant. Yes.
Sorry?
800 crore investment was for the setting up of the plant and setting up
And
of
what is for the charging stations?
charging stations. There's a separate figure for it, sir. Just let me
How
one
much?
second.
Okay, not an issue. See, let me ask you a question.
Yes.
The case itself gives you a number which says that unless you reach a 20% market share, you are not going to be profitable, for which the setting up of production cost itself will come to about 1,200 crores.
Okay, sir.
I'm talking of production alone,
Okay.
right? The case gives you the number of 20%, not the 1,200. That I agree with you. But the point is that that's something for you to work on that.
Okay.
Right. While we might agree to the fact that 20% is something which overnight it may not happen.
Yes, sir.
But the point is the investment has to be done initially itself.
Yes,
So if
sir.
you're going to put only 800 in your production,
Yes.
and let us presume, I think if you're not mistaken, you put 600 for your charging station.
Yes.
Okay. And you're talking about R&D. I'm not sure how much for R&D.
Yes.
How
Sir.
much for your marketing cost?
Yes.
Right. So where is the money lying at the end of the day? As a person who wants to start a business,
Yes.
as a consultant, when you're coming and telling me this, my worry is always that what is my returns and how fast do I get? When do I get it?
Okay.
Keeping in mind that this is a concept which is just entered in India. The government has given some subsidies, but the government as of today, they also have withdrawn some certain amount of subsidies. As we go along, the subsidies may be withdrawn and the rules and regulations can change. Right? And they're already established players in the market. I'm going to come in new with a brand. So which means, see, there is nothing wrong in you saying it is not viable, so let us not go into it. There's absolutely nothing wrong presenting that. But nobody said that you will have to present, because that also is one of the questions which is raised in the case.
Yes.
If you think that we should not go for EV market, please mention that.
Yes.
The only question is why. Right? So that is where I think somewhere the gap has happened. So maybe you can introspect among yourselves later on and understand the entire thing.
Sure.
Okay?
Sure.
Okay, thank you, Ashwin, Arvind, Harshit.
Thank
So nice presentation, but you have done a lot of study, which I really appreciate.
Yes.
Really done a lot of effort on this.
Yes.
But please understand when you're making a presentation that the other person should be willing to receive the entire content to one shot. Yes, you can give us a doc to the person and then make it a small presentation. So
Yes.
whether if I want to refer, I can always refer the doc rather than looking at the presentation.
Okay.
It's just for the future.
Sure.
You guys all the best.
Thank you.
Okay, let's be in touch later.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, then you can sign on.
We now have a special education AV from Aditya Birla Sun Life Mutual Fund.
Life is like cricket. When you get thrown a googly, how you bat is the difference between hitting a six and getting out. A simple example of a googly in life is your laptop crashing while you're working on an important business presentation. If you're smart and prepared, you should have your files backed up on the cloud and should recover from this loss quickly. If you are not prepared, you will have lost years of work. A complicated googly is the 2020 pandemic that shut the world down and disrupted businesses and economies globally. If you already had an online business module or quickly added one, you continued to work like normal. If you didn't, you probably struggled. As organizations, as employees, we try to plan for unexpected situations that could disrupt work. But as an individual, are you prepared to handle googlies like a medical emergency, a natural disaster, a recession, or another pandemic without draining your savings and generating a mountain of debt? If your answer is no, then it is time to set up a contingency fund that can handle life's googlies. What is a contingency fund? Like the name suggests, it is a fund that may help you survive in an emergency. A contingency fund may give you breathing room if your salary isn't paid or if you lose your job. You may not be stumped on how to pay your child's school fees, utility bill and EMI, or worse, if you can put food on the table. How does a contingency fund help in these situations? Well, a good contingency fund is seeded with 6 to 9 months' salary. Do not panic. Yes, that's a lot of money. But you don't need to have it today. You will accumulate it slowly over time. All you have to do is stay committed and only use the fund for true emergencies. This means no spending it to upgrade your phone when it still works or using it to fund that spontaneous friend's trip. How to create a contingency fund? Think of a contingency fund as a systematic investment for unexpected situations. Step 1. Set up a contingency fund account. It can be a savings account, a liquid fund account, or any other type. Just make sure it is relatively safe, easy to access, and separate from your regular savings account. After all, you don't want to spend it accidentally. Step 2. Set achievable targets. When you are playing a match, you don't reach 400 runs on the first ball or even the first over. You keep your team motivated by setting smaller targets that will help you achieve the desired outcome. Similarly, set yourself smaller targets. Once you reach it, raise the bar higher until you have collected at least 6 months' salary. Step 3. Make your contingency fund a part of your financial plan. Analyze your existing income and expenses and find areas which can be tightened to give you a winning outcome. This should ensure you aren't struggling or forgetting to meet your targets every month. Step 4. Set up an automatic systematic contingency fund process. Start an auto debit to transfer your budgeted amount into your contingency fund account. Remember to increase the amount as your salary and expenses grow. Step 5. Replenish your systematic contingency fund. Every time you dip into your contingency fund, make sure you replenish it. This will ensure you are financially prepared to take on the next emergency, if any. Follow these steps with an aim to build a fund that could sustain your quality of life during an emergency. Start today and aim to be prepared to manage any googly that life may bring. An investor education and awareness initiative of Aditya Birla Sun Life Mutual Fund. Mutual fund investments are subject to market risks. Read all scheme-related documents carefully.
So good afternoon to both, sir. We are team. I myself, Rakesh Menon. I am the Chief Data and Technology Officer for this particular case study. And with me, I have my teammates, DV Dinesh, who will be the Chief Marketing and Business Officer, and our Chief Financial Officer, Argadi. So moving to the first slide. So basically, if we can see that on a life cycle level, there have been many questions regarding EV with regards to the internal combustion engines and hybrid. So taking on the impact level, the questions mainly focus on three scales, that are the production, the operation, and the disposal level. So in operation level, everyone knows that the tailpipe emissions being almost zero. EV, it has a name of being a cleaner energy with respect to ICE and hybrid vehicles, but at the same time, in terms of the production and the disposal stages, the manufacturing of EV also involves the mining of various metals like lithium and cobalt and other resources, which require substantial energy consumption and leads to emissions. But a recent report by the International Council on Clean Transportation, which was done on the life cycles of the three types of vehicles, gave out the values that the EV vehicles gave almost 60 to 66% lesser emissions on a per kilometer scale as compared to diesel engines, and 47 to 50% less as compared to the gasoline engines. So EV is the way towards getting a cleaner future, but it is not just the way, but EV is certainly the most sustainable method that we have on our hands. Going to the next slide. So the case study that was given to us is that the Green Mobility wishes to enter the EV market and needs a consultant to identify whether how the space is working, and wants to make strategic implementations and also an informed decision making. So it's already given that there is a 9% CAGR of passenger vehicle production that is happening over time, and the projection for the current financial year is a 40% growth of the vehicles, which is almost 14 lakhs. But at the same time, if we look on the real-time statistics from the data that has been collected from Business Standard, Statista, EcoGears, and India Briefing, there are various barriers to the adoption of EV. In 2023, you can see till the data that is available till November 2023, the number of sales volumes has not seen a very significant growth as compared to the year 2022. But at the same time, if you can see the category-wise EV sales in India for the month of June specifically, there has been a good demand of growth in terms of the four-wheeler vehicles. And the global issues such as the semiconductor chip scarcity overall, and the consumer preferences, the unclear TCOs, and the dependence on subsidies, the government policies regarding the 18% GST on battery imports versus the 5% on direct EV vehicles are some of the key issues there. But we can see that there are some silver linings in this cloud, because Tata Motors, which is one of the leaders in the market, has recently started its direct retail space with Tata.ev showrooms in Gurgaon, and also has invested on a 3 lakh capacity plant in Sanand in Gujarat. And also there have been significant investments in the retail and the rental space of EVs. So the future looks good, but there are challenges to achieving what the Indian government wants in terms of the number of charging stations, the number of vehicles that it wants to ply on the roads. Moving forward, my friend Dinesh will take care of the business analysis.
Yeah, thank you very much, Rakesh. I'll be taking it forward from here. So here we'll be discussing about the Porter's forces and the proposed business canvas model. So coming to the Porter's forces, here we have the competitive rivalry, which is very high. We can actually, from the previous slide, we can get to know that Tata, Mahindra, and MG are prominent players. with Tata having 72 and Mahindra and MG having a combine of 20%. So penetrating into this market and with this competition would be very hard for any company to get in. And threat of new entrants, it is a bit moderate because it requires large investments to set up the manufacturing plants and distribution channel. It is a bit moderate because of one of the reasons where government is giving the support to the new players by bringing policies like PLI schemes. Now coming to the bargaining power of suppliers and bargaining power of buyers. Bargaining power of buyers is very high because the critical components which are included here are the batteries and the uh, allied things which are essential for us to build a EV. So these are only provided by very few major players. So their bargaining power is high, and it will also be a very very big thing when we are getting into the manufacturing. And coming to the bargaining power of the buyers, consumers are price sensitive here. So currently the Indian customer is still on the price sensitive side. They expect they expect it to be bit on the cheaper side and still provide all the quality and all the quantity measurabilities. The customer's brand loyalty is also limited. They can easily switch to other what we say other competitors based on the offerings which they are getting. And coming to the threat of substitutes, from what Rakesh has mentioned, IC vehicles are still popular, but fuel cost and emissions norm actually makes EVs visible. Like we can not exactly say EVs are going to be on the roads in next 1 or 2 years, but coming down the path in the next 5 to 10 years, we can expect EVs to dominate the roads. Coming to the proposed business canvas model, here our key partners will be the government agencies for incentives and grants. Second one is business suppliers and charging network firms. We have to build strategic alliances with them. And the most important part here is our ties with raw material and component supplier, because it is going to be a very strategic partnership. Because if we do not have a proper raw material or component suppliers, then our product is completely waste. Coming to the next point, it is strategic partnership with the design and tech firms. So next thing we'll be discussing is about the key activities which are included. Vehicle design and integration is one of the backbone of manufacturing. Battery assembly and EV manufacturing is the second. It comes second in the line. Scale, and the most important things which we'll be discussing here is scaling the production capacity and the charging infrastructure development. These are the things which we need to focus upon. So now, what are the key resources which we are having? R&D development and design and engineering department is our main backbone. Manufacturing capacity which we'll be installing, supplier and vendor network which we'll be having, and the charging infrastructure land assets will be getting it to build the charging infrastructure. What is the value proposition which we are offering here? Affordable and energy efficient electrical vehicles, low operating costs and environmental friendliness is promised on the basis of drastically reduced fuel usage and low maintenance costs. It will actually impact environment on a larger basis. The next one is advanced connectivity and performance features. Like once it is an electrical vehicle car, we can connect it to using the IoT and other things to ensure the safety and all. Customer relationships, here we'll be focusing on what our customer is experiencing, like enhancing their user experience and focusing on the convenience of usage and on accessibility. Like if a person is willing to accessible, like even the smallest of the smallest cars, if they are EV, we are willing to bring electrical vehicles in all kinds of verticals, be it 5 lakhs, 10 lakhs, that cost margin. And second, last one is sales and service support across the country to enhance the customer experience. Now coming to the channels, we'll be focusing on the online platforms as they are in trend right now. The second one is the old traditional way of brick and mortar shops or brick and mortar retail units, offline sales. Just like Rakesh has previously mentioned, Tata EVs Tata EV store has been recently launched. And one of the most important thing here is uh, giving up the test drive event so that the customer experiences and then gets to buy it. Coming to the customer segments, we'll be focusing on two types of customers. One is retail buyers and the fleet operations. Here we'll be targeting middle and upper income urban residents for
10 minutes over.
Okay. Fleet operations will be focusing on the companies which are logistic-based companies. Cost and revenue streams. Cost is associated with direct vehicle manufacturing and all the other implied costs like promotion and charging setup costs. Revenue streams here only are vehicle sales, fleet customers, and regular income from charging station. Argidip will take over from here.
Thank you, Dinesh. And good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. And I come directly to the financial aspect of this venture, where I will just walk through and how green mobility is going to, what are the finances behind green mobility's decision into venturing into the EV space. So based on the data that was provided in the annexure, so in a charging station, we have tried to find out what are the possible costs and the revenue streams for operating a charging station. So there is the fixed cost in setting up a one charging station, and there are variable costs involved as well, which includes the land lease, which is given as 15,000 per month, civil works, maintenance, and promotion. Other than that, based on 17 rupees per kilowatt charging revenue and a discom EV tariff of 6 rupees, we have found that a monthly net revenue of 99,000 rupees is being generated by a charging station, which comes to an yearly net revenue of about 11,88,000 rupees. Now, here we have a net revenue, and there is also a variable cost which is involved in operating the charging station, which is giving us an annual contribution margin of about 8,83,000. So this is the net contribution margin which we are getting just from the annual operation of one charging station in question. Now there is another aspect, which is the charger that is to be used. So the fixed cost here, which has been mentioned, is it does not include the charging cost. Now the chargers are of different types, such as the Bharat AC, Bharat DC, Type 2, CCS, and based on secondary research that we have done, we have found that most of the charging stations that are most suitable for Indian EVs are the Bharat DC one, which is specifically developed in India. It's fast charging and it can accommodate both two-wheeler, three-wheeler, and four-wheeler, and it's at a reasonable cost. Also, the CHA DEMO one is used mainly by Mitsubishi Nissan and developed in Japan. That's another option. And the CCS chargers are mostly used by the Tata EVs, by the MG and Hyundai, but they have different fixed costs associated. So likewise, we have tried to club the fixed cost of establishing the charging station along with the charging cost and come up with the different fixed values. For example, if we use a Bharat DC charger in a charging station, the cost might come out to 8 lakhs. But if we use a CCS2 charger in a charging station, same cost rise to about 24 lakhs. And thus, while getting an revenue or a margin of 8 lakhs about per year, we can see that the payback period for the getting back the fixed investment ranges from about 1 year in case of using a Bharat DC charging station, or up to 3 years for using the CCS charging station. And likewise, we can plan on the charging station investment. Now, moving ahead, another data that was provided was on the prices and the total of lifetime operating costs of an EV. So here what we have tried to do is coming up with the cost of ownership of the cars. So as we can see, the few highlights from this is that although the total operating cost is seen here for the EVs, for the full EVs to be in a very wide range. Now the main reason for is that the government is providing at present some support in the GST concession, which is about 5%. And without concession, the GST would have amounted to 28%. Now, according to the Niti Aayog report, the government of India is expected to extend this support for the upcoming 5 to 6 years to meet their own targets. So we can expect that the government would continue to provide some sort of support in EV manufacturing. Another thing which is of interest here is that the very less lifetime operating cost. So consumers have to be made aware that if they choose an EV, their lifetime operating cost would be only a 10% of what would be for an internal combustion engine, and for hybrid, and 20% of that of hybrids. So based on this calculation, we can always see that using an EV over the lifetime, despite its initial high prices of manufacturing, that is always more beneficial. And especially when there is a lot of uncertainty in conventional fuel prices due to wars, supply shocks in petroleum and other things, we can expect this gap to go more and push the drive towards EV as well. So some of the key, so we have decided to go to venture into the EV market, and based on it, we have made a few key decisions, which is explained finally in our business plan.
So coming to the business plan recommendations, we'll be having a manufacturing capacity set up in the first year. It is 3 lakhs. It is being taken up from the reports and also averaging out all the competitors who are presently in the market. So year on year, we'll be increasing its capacity, and by the end of 4th year or 5th year, we'll be installing another plant. So investment in plant is something around nearly
15 minutes
US
over.
billion.
Go ahead, complete. Is this the last slide?
Yes, it is.
Please go ahead.
Yeah. Investment, it literally takes us US billion dollars, $2 to 3 US billion dollars. So we have taken the price as nearly 40,000 crores in the first year. And when we are investing it in the last year, 4th or 5th year, we have taken it again as 40,000 for investment in another plant. Charging facilities, we are considering to open up 20 in the first year on the basis of the density, like how many people are using and where the exact electrical vehicles are high in demand, on the basis of the heat maps within the country for that particular industry. And coming to the investment and charging stations, it was previously discussed by Argyadeep. Coming to the total capital investment, it sums up, it is a summation of both charging facilities investment and investment in plant, which is similar over the 5-year plan, over the 5 years. Investment and promotions is given within the case study. It is 40,000 INR. So it is scaled upon on that basis. Expected market share is being considered here as 5% in the first year, because we have considered it to be optimal, as the green mobility is more or less a new entrant, and we are focused on improving our quality and quantity measurements. So on the basis of that, we have taken 5% in the first year, and after that we have considered the CAGR, average of CAGR and year-on-year industry growth. On basis of that, we have considered 30 to 40% of growth year-wise. Now coming to the revenue from vehicle sale, it is like we have assumed we'll be selling 70% of all the vehicles manufactured. On the basis of that, we have calculated the revenues here. It amounts to 38,000 crores in the first year, and something near to 1 lakh crores in the last year. And coming to the revenues from the charging stations, it was previously mentioned by Arya that 0.83 8 lakhs 30,000 would actually be benefit from revenue from one charging station. So on basis of that, we have calculated all our revenues from charging stations. So that's how we have come up with the total revenue. And coming to the payback period, we have it was previously discussed by Arya in the last slide. So the steps here is venture into the market plan, EV market, set up a plant with 300K capacity, focus on improving hybrids first and full on EV vehicles by the end of 5th year, setting up charging stations in the ratio of 3:2:1 for types of charging stations and charging capacities mentioned in the previous slide. Evaluate the market positioning and market share should be done, so as to whether we have to invest in the next new plant or not. And on basis of this, we have to do the profit analysis. So that's how the plan flows. Thank you.
Hi guys, thanks for a nice presentation. Info is there. Only thing is, How did you arrive at that 40,000 crore of investment? I didn't get that logic, man. Because you are looking at 3 lakh units overall, all three put together. And for that, are you saying 40,000 crores of investment is required? Point number one. Point number two is, man, how are you saying 38,000 crores of revenue? By investing 40,000, are you looking at a 38,000 crore? Is there any zeros extra added or what is that? That is one thing. And second is you are also looking at charging stations, right? So what is that Green Mobile can bring to the table on that side? When anything you can specifically say? Yeah, these are my two questions.
Sure, sir. So first one is generally what we have researched is we have seen the like we have seen India brief reports and modern intelligence reports and Bain's reports on investing into a manufacturing of a EV plant. So from those reports, what we have got was it would take nearly US $3 billion to $4 billion. It would sum up in that range. So what we have done is we have just converted into the Indian currency, which was amounting to 30 to 40,000 crores. And we have taken it on a higher side so as to ensure that we do not miss out of any quality aspects. So whatever the plant which we are building, so it has to have all kinds of assembly, and also it should be we should have the battery assembly also over there. So on basis of these, we have considered it to be 40,000. And coming to the second part of the question, we have in the first year when we'll be manufacturing 3 lakh units. So we are expecting currently from 2022 to 2023, there is not substantial growth in the EV market, which was previously in the year of 2021 and 22. On basis of that, we have considered 70% of our vehicles will be sold. So on basis of that, we have come up that it would amount to the revenue of nearly 38,000 crores, 38,000 to 40,000 crores. And it would be something similar to what we have invested. Here, I would like to put a point that right in the first year, the company would not be profitable because we actually have discussed about the payback period also. So in the long run, the company, as per the market is growing, the company will be profitable. And one important consideration here when we have taken is Tata Motors right now it is having 72% of the share. As the new entrants and even MG and other Mahindra is they'll be working on it. On basis of that, the share of Tata will be reduced and there will be a gap which green mobility can get into it, capture it. So on basis of these things, we have come up with the revenue considerations. Coming to the second question here, the charging infrastructure which we have discussed, India's ambition is to go forward and sell $1.32 million cars, electrical vehicles by the end of 2030. So on basis of this, currently we are in the very nascent stage and we can expect our vehicles to be more quality rather than focusing on charging infrastructure in the beginning. We have focused more on the vehicle production. Yes.
My point here is, what is the expertise do you think Green Mobile will bring to the table with respect to the charging part?
As per the case that was mentioned, Green Mobility, it's already, I think it's already has a parent which is working in the renewable sector as well. So they have that background expertise of their parent company, which is focusing purely on the renewable energy and on the green energy part. Now, based on that, we can see from the calculations, one charging station itself, it's earning a contribution margin of about 8 lakh rupees. In the year, that's only on the operating, and irrespective of the charger, we can get back the
gave answer to my question. I was just looking for the answer to my question. No issues. Over to you, SK.
Okay. I'm a little confused. Dinesh, you are mentioning something like you will be focusing more on vehicle production rather than charging stations. Am I mistaken or?
No, sir. My idea behind focusing on bringing electrical vehicles rather than getting more charging stations is here we are presently a very nascent, we are in the nascent stage. So what we can expect here is first get your product into the market, then the demand for the product will be ready, and on basis of that we can establish charging infrastructure. So I would like to mention here Tata Motors and other companies. They have brought product first in the market, and right now they are focusing on improving the charging infrastructure.
Okay, no
So
problem. See,
that
because
is
my confusion was based on the Excel sheet you showed me, were numbers versus what you had said. Because if I'm not mistaken, in the Excel sheet, you are mentioning charging the stations and the cost allocated to it from the very first year. So if you are going to bring
yes,
it
sir.
at a later date, when do you think you're planning to bring it?
Sir,
By mentioning a year, by first year, we are considering, let's say the plant is operation within first year. So you're starting the production within the end of, let's say, year 0. So from
Okay.
year 1, we are getting the manufacturing done. Now, when the manufacturing or products are rolled out in the market, there are already current charging stations in the market by competitors as well as by others. Now we have to understand what we have. The next step is to find out, let's say, based on the government of India and the NITI Aayog guidelines and all, we can find out a block map or a grid map. Like in Bangalore and Mumbai, it has been done to identify the hotspots in which the EV frequencies or the EVs are more in number, and the charging stations of competitors which are available are less in number, and there is a gap. Those are the areas which we will target and bring this charging station into the market, which will grow. So first, in the end of year 0, let's roll out the vehicles. Then on the basis of our market study, let's say we have identified 5 areas in Bangalore, in Electronic City or anywhere near on the outer ring road, where the traffic is too much and the charging stations are not sufficient. Those are the areas in which we will put our charging stations strategically posted, and then we'll continue the scale up throughout the next year. So that's.
I understand that. What I'm trying to get at is that why are you showing the numbers from the very first year? See, when you're showing me an Excel sheet, you are showing me, assuming I'm going to invest on charging stations from the very first year. You understand from where I'm coming. So when you are planning to, what your plan is fine. I very much appreciate it. And then you want to roll out the cars and then study the market, after which you would like to roll out the charging stations. If that's the case, my investment starts only from the second year or the third year, depending upon my sale. That also depends, right? It also depends upon the kind of sale I do, kind of market penetration I do. Right?
Actually, we had an internal discussion on this exact point which you're mentioning, sir. That should we put a charging station at 0 in the first nascent year as well, and then get into it. But then we thought that maybe 20, because it was coming, the revenue analysis was showing that it was profitable to put a charging station at this present moment with the given consideration of the data that was provided in the case. So maybe we could proceed and get it done. So so that's the
But
logic.
that is
which
where
was
your gap is there. No, you have presented something and you're telling me something else. Right? So it doesn't gel. So what you put on paper and what you're trying to tell me are two different things. So it is just to showcase to green mobility that you will make profit from the very first year. Don't put some numbers there. It's okay. Nobody's talking about, see, be very honest by saying first year you will not make profits. Very clear. Right? And then you start from the second year. The case study is very clearly showed you, unless you capture 20% of the market, you're not really going to make any profits. Right? Now your 20% is you are showing almost at the end of the 5th year. Including your charging stations. Please understand, including your charging stations, you're almost showing at the end of the 5th year. The 19% was the 5th year, if I'm not mistaken. So you will have to work on your numbers to see how best you can improve on that. Number one. Number two, on your slide on the charging stations, you had mentioned somewhere around 15,000 per month as land lease rent.
Yeah, that was given in the case, sir, per month basis. So on the charging station, they are the different cost heads, and based on it, they are mentioned it as a land rent of 15,000. Now that's a variable cost. So I just split the fixed and the variable parts, and just put the variable parts together and the fixed part together.
No, not an issue. So what I'm trying to say is the case study is basically to give a basic idea for you. It is for you to analyze and then come back. But you yourself tell me, do you think you will get a land for 15,000 rupees per month and land lease anywhere in India? No. In an urban segment, knowing very well that we are getting into a different kind of a model. Right? Because there's a lot of other work done, other background work which you need to do for this, right? So when you're We might have mentioned a number. You don't have to take that as a gospel truth. You can always challenge us, and you can always present a different number, which gives us a better clarity. Right? The case study only gives a direction. Case study is not the final word. It's only giving a direction for that. Okay, and when you're having a plant, are you aware that most of the vehicle manufacturers, almost all the vehicle manufacturers, even the branded ones, they do not manufacture the parts of the car. Most of the parts are outsourced, assembled from there. So the assembly only is done in the shop floor. So have you ever thought of doing something like that? Instead of manufacturing each and every single part in your production area.
Now, when we are mentioning manufacturing, we meant basically the battery segments and the chassis, which would be outsourced as well. But the key components, maybe in terms of some specific design for the car, which would be unique to Green Mobility, which they have the expertise in, that we could go for insourcing and outsourcing. But specifically battery, we have to, I think the battery segment is something which still Green Mobility doesn't have an expertise on, as given in the case background. So that definitely, that part of the assembly, that has to be taken care, as well as the chargers. If you're talking about chargers, so that also you have to involve specialists.
All right. Okay, this is something which I've been hearing regularly, so I use this for my own clarification. Consider as a layman asking you this question. You're talking about an online sales. They are talking about brick and mortar sales. What is this online sales for a car?
Online sales is sort of like now we have seen some online shopping mall type of experience where you have the online product. Let's say I have an online store for Green Mobility, and they offer me the opportunity that I can book the car and test and give a test ride of it, and the car will be available at my doorstep. I can pick the car up, I can take it for a test ride, and I can then make a decision on it.
That's already available in the market, right?
Yeah, and we are just thinking that should also be.
Because you had very specifically mentioned that in your slides by saying, you know, there's a brick and mortar and an online sale. We'll have to go into online sales rather than follow the brick and mortar. That I was wondering, what is this online sale so specific that, you know, the brick and mortar or something is not, is an older version. Why do you want to get into the old version of getting into a dealership show and showroom and etc. But whatever you are telling me right now, it's already existing. If at all you go into an Hyundai thing or anywhere else, I can book for my test ride. And the car is available for me. Only thing is, from the dealer, again, it comes from the dealer which is nearest to me.
But sir, as we increase the number of dealers, we are increasing the number of channels and the length of the supply chain. And for a new entrant, which is just penetrating market, that's adding to a bit of a cost as well. So in that sense, even for the for the initial years, you can focus a bit on the online and then build a dealer, because you don't have the current dealer network. That has to establish from a scratch, and that takes up some sort of cost.
Is that cost also been included? Dealer network cost?
In what, sir?
In the numbers you said?
No, sir. That's not been included.
Okay. No issues. Thank you very much. A piece of suggestion. When you have too much of data, please don't put everything in the slides. Okay, we have simple slides, so it becomes much more better clarity. When you have too much of content, it becomes difficult for the other person to read everything. I do understand that you are trying to explain. When you are explaining everything, you don't have to put the content there. Only when you're not explaining, the content has to come, right? When you're explaining each and every point, I don't see a reason for you to put the content there. If you just put it as bullet points and explain the entire thing to us.
Yeah.
Right? This is just a suggestion.
Sure,
right. Sir. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
All the best.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, sir.
Yes, I know. Thank you.
We now have a special education AV from Aditya Birla Sun Life Mutual Fund.
Benefits of SIP, STP, SWP. Win with SIP. This is Sid. He recently started working and wishes to invest his money in the stock markets. But his salary isn't much, and he has only a small sum of money left to invest every month. While he was contemplating on what he could do, his elder sister Reena came to his rescue. An avid investor herself, Reena introduced him to the magic trio of SIP, STP, SWP.
Don't worry, you don't really need a large amount to start investing. You can invest as as little as 500 rupees weekly, monthly or quarterly using SIP, that is Systematic Investment Plan in mutual funds. And before you wonder how it could help, let me tell you, a SIP has many advantages. 1. It lets you start small. And when you invest every month, you average your purchasing cost. So, you needn't worry about timing the market. For example, let's assume you invest 500 rupees every month. Given the market volatility, the cost of purchasing a unit of a mutual fund will change every month. Say, in the first month, you may get 40 units for 500 rupees. In the second month, you may also get 25 units for the same amount and perhaps more in the next month, say 45 units. This difference in price averages out over time, giving you the best possible price per unit over time. 2. You not only make your money work, you also make time work in your favor by starting to invest sooner than later. 3. You also benefit from the power of compounding by reinvesting the profits earned from your investments in mutual funds. Let me explain. Suppose you invest 500 rupees per month for a year. In 12 months, you will have invested 6,000 rupees. Let's assume your money grows at 8% during the year. So, your investments will be worth 6,480 rupees at the end of year 1. Now, if you leave the entire amount invested in the fund and continue with your SIP, by the end of the second year, your investment would be 12,480 rupees. That is 6,480 rupees plus 6,000 rupees. But given the 8% returns, you would have earned a profit of 998.4 rupees. And this amount will continue to compound as long as you stay invested.
This is quite enlightening. But sis, I have a doubt. When I get a bonus at the end of the year, how do I invest it? I don't want to take the risk of timing the market.
I'm glad you are catching on, Sid. You just need to be smart with your investments. You can park your bonus in a low-risk debt or liquid fund initially, and then set up a STP, that is a systematic transfer plan, which will transfer fixed amounts from this scheme to other debt and equity schemes regularly and give you all the advantages of a SIP. So you don't have to worry about timing the market. And while the SIPs happen, your money isn't lying idle in your bank. It is earning interest in debt or liquid fund. And just like a SIP, STP allows you to set the duration of your investment period. For example, if you get a 50,000 bonus, you can choose to invest 5,000 in a single scheme or 1,000 in 5 different schemes over the next 10 months. You can make this choice based on what goal you wish to achieve.
You have a solution for everything. I have one more question though. I can keep my investments going every month, but how can I withdraw, say after 10 years, without the hassle of timing the markets?
Well, Sid, this one is easy too. Let's assume you are investing for your retirement funds. Once you retire, you can turn your SIP into a SWP, that is a systematic withdrawal plan, and get a fixed income at regular intervals. So if you need 25,000 rupees per month to meet your expenses, you can set up the SWP to deposit 25,000 rupees into your bank account every month or 75,000 rupees every quarter. SWP gives you the flexibility to choose. A SWP not only aims to give you protection against market volatility, it keeps your money working for you. So, you see, when you SIP, STP or SWP, you aim to win on multiple levels, today as well as tomorrow.
An investor education and awareness initiative of Aditya Birla Sun Life Mutual Fund. Mutual fund investments are subject to market risks. Read all scheme-related documents carefully.
A very good afternoon to everybody. I'm Ishita Kotian, and today I, along with my colleague Isha, will be taking you through the potential green mobility has today in the EV market and the proposed business plan it should adopt as it moves forward. Okay, can you go to the next slide, please? Right. So the EV market in India today is in the pretty nascent stage with an adoption of about just 4 to 5%, but with a significant chunk of it being dominated by the two and three-wheeler segment. The market, however, has displayed a lot of potential, with the government aiming for a 30% penetration in EVs by the year 2030. On your screen are some figures about the current state of the EV market, which is very good considering it's shown a 200% increase from 2019 up until now, 2023. EV today are being popularized by brands such as Tata and Ola, and also by the various government policies and initiatives that have been brought out in the recent years. However, we are still lagging behind similar economies such as China, which already has a 20% of EV penetration, but which also shows that if given the right push, the Indian economy can also reach the same state with the potential to fulfill the promise of the 30% penetration by 2030. Right, if we can go to the next slide, please. Yeah. So let's look at the state of the primary barrier to significant EV penetration in India today, right? Charging stations. India significantly lags behind in the terms of EV to EV SE ratios today if you compare to other economies where it's around 3 to 12 EVs per EV SE ratio. But in India, we're currently at about 300. Our aim is to reach, currently we're at about 10,000 chargers, and our aim is to reach 1,300,000 by the year 2030 at a ratio of 1:4. Now, in order to do this, the Niti Aayog has suggested some measures on how to go about this, right? First, if you look at how to identify the spaces on how to identify where we should be actually setting up these chargers, they suggested a method of location planning via geospatial analysis. Now, how this works is that you divide the planning area into cells of 1 square kilometer each, and then you identify parameters that indicate the potential charging demand. Once that's identified, you map it onto the cells, and on those cells, then you assign weightages to the parameters and their values. Once the weightages are assigned, you get a color code as seen in the fifth diagram, right, where you can see the highest demand is in what cell. And depending on the demand, you assign those number of chargers to that particular area. Now, we know that this is the area where you need to put 3 chargers, right? How do you actually find the space for it? Because it was specifically mentioned, and as we know that in the Indian infrastructural space, there is always space constraints on where to set up public chargers. So they've also suggested a couple methods for these. The first would be setting up MOUs between municipal authorities. For example, with landowning authorities such as municipal corporations and urban development corporations, if you enter into MOUs with CPOs, it will be beneficial and it's advantages to both parties to set up chargers there. Also, innovations such as EV charge points, streetlight chargers, and other low-cost EV solutions are providing affordable solutions for the charging infrastructure, as is also being done in other countries such as Berlin. In the short term, also local authorities can mandate that a share of existing public parking spaces be reserved for EV charging. Moving on in the long term, this can also be incorporated into the urban-rural planning on whole. Right now, if we look at the national policies for developing, we also have some national policies for developing our infrastructure. As seen, we've gotten 4 policies which help or which have specifically been launched to better the EV charging in India. Right, next slide, please. Right now, getting a quick overview of the legal landscape of EV in India. We have a lot of policies that have come out in the recent 10 to 12 years in respect to the various segments of EV that need to be really built to have a robust market in India. The most popular among these is, of course, FAME 1 and FAME 2, which brought out the first and the most talked about thing that there should be a charging grid in every 3 to 3 kilometer space, charging stations on every 25 kilometers in highway. Also, they reduced the GST on EVs initially from 18% to 12% and now further on to 5%, which has significantly helped boost the EV market today. Also, PLI schemes have been launched for your ACC cells, and recently last year, a PLI scheme was launched also for automobile and auto components, which offer subsidies to manufacturing these inside internally and not importing it from outside. Also, state policies have been brought out by more than 20 plus states in the country today with their own EV policies and their own set of rules on how EVs will operate in their state. A phased manufacturing program also was initiated with the objective of localizing your EV production. And there are other subsidies such as concession on on road tax, etc. A few problems with these policies also currently exist. For example, the state policies are not uniform across and it's different for different states, which can be standardized. Also, there is undeveloped infrastructure currently, and there's not enough incentivization for that as in other economies. But we have made significant progress in the policies and in the talks of policies that are going to come ahead. Right, next slide.
All right. So before we actually get down to what our solution is, I think it's very important for us to, try to understand what our customer segment is to which we want to, pander to, and what our roadmap is, basically how we plan to go about this. So profiling our customers in the EV landscape. So the first, in the B2C segment, we have, first of all, the EV enthusiasts. These are the tech enthusiasts who basically, are the early adopters and are really excited with anything new, and they want to try anything new that comes in the market, right? Next up, we have the luxurious car owners because they see the purchase as a status symbol. And nowadays, what we've clearly seen in the US market happening is as well is that buying a high-tech car, right, a car which is perceived high-tech, is considered premium and luxurious as well. So that's a statement there as well. Finally, we have the upper middle class families. These are primarily driven by cost benefits, and the willingness to pay is a bit less. But yeah, when we come to the green mobility position, they something which offers them a lower lifetime ownership cost, I think, which will be really efficient for them. Finally, we come to the B2B customers. I think first of all, obviously, it's the central government, who have the most stake to build the EV market, right? Finally, next up, we have the state government and agencies, right? They have high power to localize the EV system, right? And probably order volume in terms of they can get the ecosystem running. And finally, we have corporates who have high power to create the scale and demand. These corporates need to be incentivized with government push more and more so that we can have bigger ecosystem and bigger sales of EVs. All right, moving ahead. So finally, talking about the customer-centric strategy for actually getting our customers on the board, and how do we plan to acquire them, engage with them, and finally retain them. So when you talk about acquiring them, I think this is a strategy which has worked in this tech space quite frequently, where basically you open the pre-order option for the enthusiasts and early adopters, and you customize the design and gift bookings, right? And then you start a referral and promotion system. So this system really works for actually incentivizing and actually building the hype around a new tech product, which is somewhere where our value positioning will lie as we come to it. Finally, when it comes to customer engagement, obviously social media is one big thing, right? Basically, it's all about making people share their testimonials. It's all about making the person feel that whatever car that or car that they're owning, right, it's something that they can feel pride in. When it comes to the B2C strategy, we have the new tech and update beta trial programs for live reaction suggestions. Finally, in the B2B strategies, we would have targeted corporate communication and government, making sure that we have active participation in the government programs. And finally, in the remaining engagement strategies, we would participate in the luxury of auto exhibitions or have large scale launch events to make sure that we gain enough traction. Finally, when it comes to customer retention, I think there are a couple of things which come up here. I think for a car owner, I think the service and roadside assistance would be very important. Finally, making sure that we have value-added services and products. So making sure, because this is at the end of the day is a tech product, right? So making sure we have some sort of updates happening from time to time, and increase the amount of touch points we have with the customer. I think that's really important to make sure that we have a higher retention across the vehicle life cycle. Finally, just touching base on the general roadmap that we have. I think the first one, to make sure that we have successful entry into the EV market, the first one would be tackling the general environment government, as Ishita has already touched upon, right? Basically, how that's an important stakeholder to deal with. Finally, making sure that we have a good product market fit in terms of making sure when we launch a hybrid, when we launch an EV. Finally, we have to make sure that the demand management is on point and we have a smooth supply to make sure that we don't the costs are in control. And finally, we have to react to competitive stimuli as well, because at the end of the day, nearly every major competitive firm is jumping into this and investing a huge amount of money and betting on this as the future. So we have to make sure. Finally, when it comes to future outlook, I think the key here is to attain scale, because at the end of the day, there's a lot of capital investment which is required at the beginning, which we'll look at in the later slides. But we need to attain scale so that we can evolve with the growing market and make sure that our product offerings are relevant. All right, so handing over to Ishita to actually break down what our actual market entry plan is. Ishita, you're on mute.
Yeah, I apologize. So let's get down to how we plan to actually brand green mobility and how we actually plan to get into this market, right? So what we propose is to launch green mobility as a future first tech-centric company which specializes in the EV domain. Considering the amount of competition, it would be of the best interest to have the positioning such as of a purely tech-centric EV company to help brand it and to help get that share of voice in the market. Now, while you talk about entry approaches, right? How will you plan on focusing on the
10 minutes over.
We plan on focusing on the B2C segment specifically with these three models that you can see in front of us. The first is the signature model, which is a luxury plug-in hybrid. What this model proposes is it proposes to cater to the needs of the luxurious car buyer as well as the EV enthusiast. But also it helps prevent range anxiety because it's a plug-in hybrid. So you also have the facility to go switch to ICE, but you also have the benefits of the EV technology that it brings in. Also, since we're focusing specifically on EV, we decided to go ahead with just plug-in and fully electric and all the other kinds of hybrids that are there out in the market. The second would be the EcoVolt. Once we've launched our luxury premium segment, right? It caters to a very aspirational market. So once you launch a premium product, the news spreads, the word spreads, and the aspiration for the product increases. Once we've established a limited customer base, we then plan to introduce an economy model. Now, this economy model will have slightly lower features than the luxury model, but it will be as efficient as a plug-in hybrid, and it will also have both the features of both the facilities of an IC as well as an EV. Lastly, once we've established our market with the plug-in and we've established brand trust and brand loyalty, we would go ahead with launching a fully electric vehicle, which is called Electra, which again would be completely emission-free, and it would have all the benefits that a full EV offers once we have solved the problems of range anxiety of customers, etc. Moving on. Okay, we go to the next slide, please. Yeah. So as proposed, in the first 2 years, we will go with our first model, that being Signature. In the next 2 years, we will go ahead with EcoVolt. And finally, we will launch our fully electric vehicle, which is Electra. Now, in the first 2 years, our plan is to set the ground for our company, right? So the first would be maintaining a supercharger infrastructure and launching your distribution stores. Also, your first 2 years will be focused primarily on establishing your brand and setting up your marketing for your first launch, that will be Signature. Moving on, in the medium term, we will go ahead with your larger TAM. We will address the larger economy TAM, which is the Indian market, and we will focus on our brand positioning and our customer traction in this space. Lastly, we will focus on sustaining our operations with a fully electric vehicle, making sure that we get to the customer, we get that message across to them that, a fully electric vehicle get the benefits across to them as well. Can we move on? Yeah, going quickly over our distribution plan, we plan to set up our own showrooms and galleries and service centers in addition to your online stores. The consumer benefit would be significant savings in the D2C model that we have. For this, we would be going with an organic model, and we would not be franchising our business out. The locations we would choose very strategically. So in the first 2 years, while we're launching our luxury car segment, our stores will be positioned in such a way that it actually reaches the luxury market. And because it's a new company, you need to set up that brand awareness and brand trust, which is why it's important to have stores on ground where people can come and see your product and understand what the proposal is. We would also offer you the exclusive green mobility experience and brand ourselves as a company as customers who want to be sustainable, who want to be future centric, who want to be technology first. And we will offer you that experience with our company. And lastly, we would also focus on building a superior service delivery system. Our ideal target would be having a service center within 50 kilometers of each customer. It will take time to build and it will require a huge capex investment, but it is essential to have our customers satisfied on ground. Thanks.
All right, moving on. So I think as we were going through the solution given to us, I think one big question that did come up is basically looking at the environmental impact. So it's given that overall EVs are better, but there are some things which are pretty worrisome per se, right? So we have material and constituents like nickel, lithium, cobalt in the battery, right, which are very energy intensive to mine. Something like cobalt is it's probably mined in countries like Congo, right, where basically the human rights violations are pretty high. So a lot of the major battery manufacturers have tried to make sure and promise that cobalt should be removed from manufacturing to make sure such atrocities are not carried out, just for the sake of it. The other point of worry is that EV batteries require much more water than an ICE battery, right? And finally, when it comes to rare earth minerals, which are used in the battery itself, they can emit radioactive water and dust. Finally, benchmarking EVs with IC vehicles, right? So one point of worry is that even in India, which can be a point of worry, is that basically EV chargers would rely on electricity for power plants, because India is currently at the stage is not totally coal non-reliant, and we still reliant on fossil fuels. So a lot of that electricity would be coming from coal itself, right? Finally, a big point of worry is that electric vehicles or electric cars are much more heavier than a normal vehicle. And what happens there is that your tires run out faster, right? This leads to an increase in the particulates that the tire releases when it gets into wear and tear. It also creates a huge problem of handling the tire base type. The other big point of worry with electric vehicles is that basically EVs get totaled more often. What this main issue is that the EV engine, right, is in its current state and its current across various companies, it is a very sensitive piece of machinery where basically even the light impact would probably spoil its structure, and basically have to put a totally new engine altogether, which is not the case for
15 minutes over.
All right, just wrapping up this slide and touching base on the final thing. Finally, so we just want to touch upon is that for batteries, solutions have been built where we have the first life as in the battery, second life as a storage, and then you recycle the minerals again. And that's what the imagery on the right is basically trying to show. Finally, touching on the final, I think financials that we have in summarizing this is basically whatever numbers we have here. Basically, obviously the annexures exhibits really help. What we also made sure that we modeled our market entry plan according to a recent entry in the market, where a firm positioning themselves as a technology first firm. So I think Morris Garages entered recently, right? So we modeled a lot of our analysis here based on their entry and made sure that whatever assumptions we've taken, they mention on the right. Based on this, our payback period or amount that we need to probably break even post the capital investment, the charging infrastructure, promotions will be around somewhere 5 to 6 years over the course. Right. That's it from our end. Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Nice presentation with a lot of info. I think what comes out very clearly is initial at least 2-3 years you don't want to manufacture the fully EV vehicles, and then probably at a later stage is what you are looking at it. What is the kind of market share we need to look at to at least break even? Any idea, any numbers on that?
Yeah. I'll just flash the financial slides again. Yeah. So for break even, right? So basically, our whatever modeling and we did, right, to actually come out to the exact number, right? Basically used, as I mentioned, the assumption was that we model ourselves with the entry of the Morris Garages, right? So we started with the market for the first year. We did not have any market share because basically we were building capacity, we were setting up the infrastructure and investment in the plant. We started with a market share of around 1.4%, and over the 5 years, we are somewhere around 1.8%. This is primarily market share of the SUV market, because as it was given to us that we primarily make creating SUVs. So based on this, I think based on this market share, we'll be able to break even around the 5 6 years. Post this, as we increase our product offerings, as we increase the amount of vehicles that we and in distribution, I think obviously this number would increase a lot going ahead. Yeah.
Okay. Then with this market share, we'll be able to sustain. That's what you feel?
Right, sir. Right. So the idea, as you mentioned in the roadmap earlier as well, the idea is to attain scale in the long run, right? In the beginning, because so our rationale for not going EV full in the beginning is because Indian customer is because it's a large pool, but we need to make sure that we actually properly onboard them, right? So that's why we went thought of going into the plugin first, so that we onboard them with the idea, then finally go full EV. Right. So yeah. So the idea is that with this market share, making sure that we scale with our distribution and with our product offerings, we'll be able to, eventually break even and achieve profitability. Yeah.
Also, currently,
anything? Yeah. Go ahead.
No, I was just adding on, so that currently there are a lot of issues with range anxiety, like in the primary Indian consumer, right? And all the initiatives that are being brought upon to increase the number of charging stations. There are a lot of government initiatives that have promised 40,000, 20,000 charging infrastructures. It will happen over the period of the next 4 to 5 years. So we figured bringing out your fully electric vehicle at that stage makes a lot more sense than bringing out now, because the number of charging stations will be higher, and hence the range anxiety and the information among the consumers will be more at that point. At this point, a plugin makes more sense because at least it solves that problem of the consumer, that, constantly that what if there is no charging station? That issue is why we chose this.
Yeah. Thanks a lot. Over to you, SK.
Yeah. Can you just go back to the numbers slide? Sure. Now, you had mentioned initially that, you don't want to have any of the existing dealers or distribution network, but you would like to have your own showroom to sell your products, right?
Right.
What do you guys want? So you're talking about manufacturing and rolling out cars from the year 2. Where is the cost for setting up showrooms here?
So the cost of
So
setting
there
up
is an investment, right? There is an investment. It's a huge investment, because my question is this. For example, you take Nexa.
Right.
How many Nexa showrooms do you see in a town? In an urban area, or let's say a place like Delhi or Chennai or Mumbai or Kolkata?
All right. I think I'm not sure of Delhi. So I come from a very proper tier 2 city, which is Ludhiana, and there we had two showrooms. Based on, if I were to guesstimate, I think it will be somewhere around 5 to 6 showrooms in Delhi.
In such a huge population move. Now you are setting up something on your own, and you are going to have a showroom of your own. How many showrooms have you planned, and what is the cost that you're going to incur on that? Manpower cost, because you're going to employ people, train them on your cars. There's a huge investment on that. That seems to not be reflecting in the numbers.
Right. So yeah, the number is not called out here, but it's part of the when we talk about the investment in the total capital investment, it's part of that, right? Basically, because and it's part of the promotions as well. So the idea here is that in the beginning, right, obviously to get the land, get the lease, scale everything up, right? It takes time. So that's why the rationale here was, obviously we could have called out that number here. Probably we could show this.
Yeah. The reason why I asked you the question is that I knew I was expecting this answer from you by saying the cost which is shown here everything is plugged into this cost. Right? But the point is, have you ever looked what would be the cost of the land? What would be the cost of whether you're going to take it on lease, whether you're going to want to rent it, whether it's going to be your own building, that we do not know, but whatever the case may be. Right? In a let's say a metro city, what would be your cost?
Right.
I'm sure we are not targeting tier 2 cities to start with. We're targeting on the metro cities to begin with, right? So that cost versus the investment that you're talking about would not match.
Right.
Because if you really have gone through the case study, it also gives you an indication by saying you will be making a turnaround only if you're able to cover up 20% of the market. Market share should be around 20%, for which there should be an investment of at least 12,000 crores.
Right.
Now, if you had seen that, then I don't know whether how you came out with this number, but I appreciate the fact that you are not wanting to start the car in the first year or the second year, but you want to slowly move forward to EV after starting off with hybrid. I really appreciate that factor of it.
Right.
But maybe the numbers part of it, we might have to relook a little bit.
Right. So yeah, so just adding on to some extra context.
Sure.
So the expected market share that's mentioned is basically market share in the SUV market and not in the EV or the electric vehicle market.
Okay.
Right. So if you look at the EV market or the electric vehicle market, the market share I think is somewhere around 15-16% of the numbers that we have as of now. First thing that, and the second thing, when it comes to I think leasing, when you raise the question of if you buy land or lease land, so based on I think what was given in the annexure, it was shown that in the charging station we will be primarily leasing land. So I think that's the assumption with which we built we took that built in that assumption that we'll be leasing land at least for the beginning part of our journey.
Okay. The other thing is, what is green mobility into? As an organization, green mobility is into what?
Okay.
It's a subsidiary of a organization which is a renewable
Correct. Yeah.
energy, right? Now, you spoke about charging stations, you spoke about this thing, very good. But in what extent do you think you will be able to utilize green mobility's strength?
Right. So since they already have expertise and they already have knowledge, it's already is a subsidiary of a renewable energy firm, right? Investing in having that knowledge on hand, considering charging stations is fairly a new market. You have CPOs that are coming up right now. You have very few company. So Tata Power is setting up charging stations, but other than that, you don't really see any big brands doing it out there, right? So getting that knowledge base from their having a subsidiary, getting that knowledge base from that will largely help them in getting a brand. And also when you have seeing Tata Power charging stations, I come from Bombay, and having seen those Tata Power charging stations in and around is what builds that curiosity, and it's what builds that brand image, right? That if they have charging stations, they will also have cars and so on and so forth. Backing that knowledge and building those charging stations will also help brand awareness and help your EV sector as well.
Okay, well, okay, good. But very neat and clean presentation. You should appreciate that. Okay, but again, as though you had given me the answer, Jaya, but I would still love if both of you can sit together and put your heads together and work on the numbers a little bit more. I'm sure you will change the numbers. Okay, you will change the numbers going forward. No problem. Otherwise, wish you all the best. A good job.
Right. So thank you so much. It was a
Thank
pleasure.
you.
Thank you.
Yeah, bye.
We now have a special education AV from Aditya Birla Sun Life Mutual Fund.
Nivesh Fables presents Choose Your Advisor Wisely.
There were two rabbits. Willy was the wise one and Fred was not so wise. They were walking through a field and came upon two carrots. Fred excitedly rushed and picked up a carrot, but it was smaller than it looked. He was confused, so Willy said, "Judging a carrot by its leaves is not the right way." After walking for some time, they came across another set of carrots. This time, Willy chose the carrot first. Fred thought, "How come the carrot with smaller leaves is small?" Willy replied, "I do not judge a carrot by its leaves." For the third time, they found two carrots again. Willy pulled out one carrot and offered it to his friend. Fred was still confused and said, "I don't know how you do it, but I guess you're just smarter than me." "Fred, I may have the wisdom, but I share it with others and help them benefit from it too. You're my friend, you trust me, and I want you to have this carrot." In real life, while making investment decisions, don't we all look for an advisor like Willy, who wouldn't just look at the leaves superfluously, but analyze, inspect, understand the investments thoroughly, and suggest the right one for us? Someone who we can trust our hard-earned money with. As they say, if you look for a financial advisor, look for someone with the heart of a teacher and the soul of a friend. Have you found yours? An investor education and awareness initiative of Aditya Birla Sun Life Mutual Fund. Mutual fund investments are subject to market risks. Read all scheme related documents carefully.
Hello judges, good afternoon. I am Mohit and I am the Chief Executive Officer. Along with me, I have Ujjwal, who is the Chief Technical Officer, and Manan, who is the Chief Financial Officer. And we will be moving ahead towards the presentation. So next slide. So now let's have a look at the EV industry, and we can see that the EV share in passenger vehicle, it is set to grow at around 58.5% CAGR till 2030. Also, if we see the breakdown, we can see the high growth rates in each category, which is higher than the average growth rate of ICE vehicles in the same time period. This presents a massive opportunity since the industry is at a growing stage currently, and the key drivers will be the first, government incentives. So policies like the FAME scheme, subsidies, and tax benefits are propelling EV adoption. Second, rising fuel prices. So fluctuating fuel costs have made cost-effective EVs more appealing. Third, technological advancements. Improvements in battery tech have boosted vehicle range and performance while at the same time reducing cost. Next slide.
Now, here we apply the Porter's 5 forces to assess the EV industry, and we infer that the threat of new entrants is low as this space needs initial high investment and has regulatory barriers and compliances. The bargaining power of buyers is medium due to increasing consumer awareness and the price-sensitive nature of Indian customers. The bargaining power of suppliers is medium due to dependence on suppliers of battery and other automobile components. But on the other side, there is a more diverse supplier base, reducing supplier power. Threat of substitutes is high to medium due to the presence of ICE and conventional vehicles and also the public transportation systems. The competitive rivalry within the industry is high due to increased competition within both the established and the new entrants and the continuous innovation and technological advancement. We do the competitive landscape of the EV industry and see that Ola Electric, Bajaj, Ather, and Pure are in the two-wheeler segment. Piaggio, Euler, Grevol, and Mahindra Electric compete in the three-wheeler segment, while Toyota, Tata Motors, MG, and Hyundai are in the four-wheeler segment. Now, we come to the decision making, whether the green mobility should enter the EV market or not. And if yes, then whether to go with the EV or the hybrid EV. From the analysis, we have seen that the hybrid EVs performed better overall than the other categories, and hence it comes out as the most viable option. Where we considered parameters like fuel efficiency, range, carbon emissions, purchase price, and customer perception. Now, under hybrid, there is a further choice between plug-in hybrid and non-plug-in hybrid. So, we compared them with various parameters, considering various stakeholders, and we observed that plug-in comes in an effective option. Hence, our decision to go ahead with plug-in hybrid vehicles, and it gives us benefits of leveraging electric power to boost fuel efficiency, aligning our overall objectives of sustainability and reduce dependency on fuel. Now, let us understand the cradle to grave life cycle of an EV hybrid, including vehicle and fuel cycle. The vehicle life cycle phase concerns manufacturing, operational usage, and end of life. It includes extraction of materials for manufacturing vehicular components, their assembly into a complete vehicle, distribution to forest shops, maintenance, and then the end of life. The fuel cycle concerns automobile fuel manufacturing, transportation, usage. It is further decomposed into two phases, well to pump and pump to wheels. The WTP phase encompasses extracting raw materials such as petroleum, transportation to refineries, refining process, and then distribution to the refueling stations. The pump to wheel phase concerns gasoline consumption during the vehicle's operational phase. Now, coming to the environmental impact of an HEV and plug-in HEV, it is assessed using energy consumption and greenhouse gas emissions as impact categories within each stage of the cradle to grave life cycle of vehicle and fuel. Energy consumption is measured in gigajoules per car, while GHG emissions are measured in tons per car. From the table and the graph, we can infer that a hybrid EV emits 18% more carbon emissions than a plug-in HEV and requires 38% more energy than a plug-in HEV. This is mainly attributed to the higher degree of electrification resulting in superior fuel economy. Based on the lower overall life cycle energy consumption and greenhouse gas emissions, the plug-in hybrid electric vehicle displays a considerably lower environmental impact than the hybrid electric vehicle and hence is preferred.
So now let's understand the customer preferences. We have taken the data from McKinsey report, and for this, actually, we conducted a survey to understand the various preferences of consumers. So from a set of questions, what we can infer is that customers are environmentally conscious and are actually willing to shape their purchase decisions based on it. So hence, when they were asked which vehicle they would choose next, the major number of respondents chose battery electric and hybrid vehicles. And this percentage was higher when we compared to the global average for the same, which is given on the right hand side. Also, an important criteria for the consumers is the purchase price, and the high upfront cost of EVs can actually be a hindrance in that decision. So moving to the next slide. We also conducted a primary research where we tried to understand what the thought process and pain points of customers are. We tried to bifurcate them in three buckets. First are the set of people who prioritize safety and are actually hesitant about EVs because of inadequate charging infrastructure and have concerns regarding the battery technology. Second are set of people who are price sensitive and would be willing to try EVs if they become more affordable in the future, as they believe that currently the high upfront cost of EV is deterring them from buying it. Third are the set of people who are early adopters and they are looking to take benefit of lower operating cost of EVs. So if we have a look at the right hand side, we can see the global battery prices and they have been in a declining trend, and it is expected that they'll achieve parity with ICE vehicles by 2030. This is all because of rapid technological advancement and increasing cost efficiencies due to mass production. That's right. So coming to the total cost of ownership, we can observe that it is less for EV when compared to an ICE vehicle. So how much is the actual cost saving? It comes out to be 3.78 rupees per kilometer. And the assumption which we have taken is that on an average, the user will use the vehicle for 10 years. So when combined, if we combine all the primary and secondary insights, we have tried to depict that in the expected customer journey of how his next immediate purchase choice would be. And it comes out to be plug-in hybrid, and then he will transition to EV. So the question here is why he cannot immediately transition to EVs. So we have listed out the possible concerns which consumers have and how they can be addressed going forward. Next slide. So moving to the EV charging infrastructure, currently majority of charging in India is of slow charging, and this is because there's lack of common standards as companies are hesitant to invest due to rapid technological advancements in this field and also because of changing regulations. So if you see the production cost of an EV, 40% of the cost comes from battery, and the battery is made up of lithium ion. But in recent times, there have been some advancements, and it is expected that there will be transition to sodium ion batteries, which will not only help us reduce the cost by 25 to 30%, but also increase the charging speed and efficiencies because of its nature. It is heavier in nature. So next slide. So now let's have a look at how the charging infrastructure is classified. They're classified as private, semi-public, and public. It is based on ownership, governance, and use. So it's important to understand this because we can see that currently the majority of the charging happens through private charging, as it can be done without requiring any additional infrastructure. In the meantime, the government is focusing on expanding the public charging so as to support its EV plan. This also presents a future business opportunity for Clean Mobility India, as the government is looking for investments from private players and they are ready to provide them with subsidies and concessions for the same. Next slide.
Now, we look upon how we assess the EV charging demand, which will be used as an input to set up the targets for number of public EV chargers. Now, coming to step 1, based upon target EV penetration rates, we estimated the EV sales for different vehicle segments for 2025 and 2030. Next step, we arrive at the daily kilometer driven by each vehicle segment based upon the transport planning data. Next, Based upon the average battery capacity and the driving range for each vehicle segment, we calculate the daily energy requirement for EV charging. Next, based upon the existing research which is available, we assign the share of charging to be fulfilled. Then we calculate the daily EV charging demand at the public charging infrastructure for different vehicle segments. The next step is for an assumed charger utilization, which we assume to be 25%, we calculate the number of chargers for different type of vehicles needed for the infrastructure. Next slide. Now we look upon how the government and other institutions are meeting the targets for the EV infrastructure, which are generally based upon the considerations for EV charging demand, which can be divided into access-based target demands and demand-based chargers. Now, access-based targets are most appropriate in the early stages of EV adoption due to low EV charging demand in the initial phases. Next is demand-based targets, which are appropriate for a planned expansion of a public charging network, and it is in line with the projected EV growth. Now, for reducing the cost, providing maximum accessibility, there is a
10 minutes over.
There is a distributed approach for the public charging infrastructure. The first one is implementation of comprehensive urban parking policies, where the local authorities are mandating shares of existing public parking space to be reserved for EV charging. Next is MOU between the charging point operators and the municipal authorities, which help in allocating the empty slots and the informal parking spaces outside shops and other buildings for EV charging. The next step is supporting the low-cost charging points, and this is done by upgrading the existing street infrastructure, including street lights, into a e-car charging points at a low cost. Next slide. Now we look upon the business plan of the company. Here we have assumed that the immediate step for the company is to enter into the PHEV, and then in the 5th year the company will start selling pure electric vehicle. Now we have assumed that the passenger electric vehicle market will grow at a CAGR of 27%, and the company will be able to capture around 5% of the hybrid EV market in the next 5 years, and around 1% of pure electric vehicle market in the 5th year. The capex requirement for the company we have assumed to be taken as 100 CR for the 5th year, as it needs to expand its EV base. Now we have taken the cost of goods sold to be 75% of the revenue. Employee benefit expenses are assumed to be 5% of the revenue. Now, assuming the finance cost to be 8% and the depreciation expenses to be around 10%, we have found out that the company will be generating losses for the first 5 years, as it is a new entrant in the market. Next. Now, to find out when the company will be profitable and what will the payback period of the company, we regress the profit function with the help of 3-order polynomial functions, and we find out that the payback period of the company is around 6.8, and the company will be profitable in 7th year. Next slide.
Now, let us understand how the company should do marketing and promotion to expand its space in the EV market. First and foremost, to educate people, spread awareness, and create the need for EV. This can be done by using television and billboards as the medium. An example could be showing scenes of pollution, bad air quality, congestion, and then transitioning to clear skies and quiet vehicles. Interesting, right? With the message, drive the change, drive electric, drive green mobility. Next is creating magic with social media, collaborating with influencers that are environment conscious. We can use graphics that can compare emissions from the traditional and the green mobility vehicles. We can share glimpses of the green mobility team behind the scenes in manufacturing processes and research activities, so that audience can understand the efforts behind creating an EV revolution. This will also help us to humanize the brand. We can also run campaigns like silent roads, clearer skies, green by nature, electric by choice, which can drive traffic towards the website and increase the engagement. The next important thing to do is engage with the local communities by sponsoring events like marathons and other eco-friendly initiatives, organizing workshops to talk about their plug-in HEV to eliminate any doubts in the people's mind. This will help strengthen people's trust and help the brand increase its visibility.
Next, we delve into the risk landscape, and we have categorized our finding into the 3 categories. The first is industry risk, second is business risk, and the third one is market risk. And then we identified various types of risk under these 3 categories. The key insight was that none of these subcategories identified were a part of high impact, high probability risk category. Next. Now coming to the conclusion. So first, should the company go ahead with the EV passenger vehicle? Yes, the company should go ahead with the EV passenger vehicle. Second, the impact of EV on the environment. EV doesn't have a major impact on the environment as compared to ICE and hybrid. Third, consumer preference. The immediate choice of the consumer will be the plug-in hybrid, but ultimately in the long term, the customer will choose pure EV. Next, progress of EV charging infrastructure. The government and the other institutions are making a fast progress toward the charging infrastructure. Next, business plan. Yes, the business plan is in accordance with the customer preference. That is, the company will sell PHEV in the and in the 5th year, the company will start selling pure EV. And here comes to the end of our presentation. Thank you for listening to us.
Can you go back to the numbers, please? Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Mr. Gururaj?
Yeah. Thanks. Thanks. I think a lot of efforts in collating all the data and presented it well. And really kudos to all three of you. I have few things, few doubts which I have. You're not talking anything on the distribution network. What kind of distribution you want to set up? I haven't seen anything on the presentation. Correct me if I'm wrong there. And second part is if you can go back to your survey, what you did, right? The McKinsey and this thing. The survey results where you have shown, right?
Yes.
Yeah, the next, yeah. So if you see here, what does the survey says, the acceptability for the plug-in kind of model is lower than what it is for the battery, right?
Yes, sir, it is lower, but at the same time, if we see the third question, which is the key criteria for next vehicle, we see that there's a significant part that 25% of the people have for purchase price. So because of that, if you see kindly, the electric vehicle cost is higher, and hence consumers are not actually sure about whether they want to accept it or not.
Okay.
That is the result why they are willing to try for plug-in hybrid vehicle because it offers the best of both worlds kindly. And in the next slide, when we did the primary research, we found out that they also have certain safety issues as to whether if they are going with electric vehicle and in the middle of it, if there's no charge, then what will happen? So combining all these things, we came to the conclusion that plug-in hybrid will be for the immediate stage. And then once the charging infrastructure becomes ready, then the transition to electric vehicles.
Okay. And the distribution network, whereas you have spoken anything on what kind of distribution network you want to set up, what is the cost involved? Anything of those I don't think I've seen in the presentation, but still, if I have missed something, probably I would love to hear that from you. Yeah.
So, sir, we have not spoken about it, but when we calculate the cost, so can we come to the virtual financial slide, please? So for that, we have actually incorporated that in our total expenses part, the distribution cost and the margins which we need to give. So what we'll be looking at is we'll be going for the traditional channel, that is through the dealers, and set up a distribution base. Also, in the case it was said that we are subsidiary of an Indian renewable giant, so we'll be taking the help from that and understanding about different players and set up a distribution base slowly over in the initial years, and then ramp it up. As a result of which, we'll be able to sell more vehicles.
And also on your conclusion part, you said you go for EV vehicles, but here I'm looking at probably end of the 5th year is what you are suggesting that we should look at EV vehicles, right? So basically, you are suggesting to go for the hybrid model for the initial 4 years, right?
Yes, sir. For the plug-in hybrid model for the initial 4 years,
for the
then
initial
move on to the
4
EV
years.
as per the customer preference.
And one more observation was, you are only saying the electric vehicle share in on the total market, you said will be around 1%. But we are looking at least a 20% market share to break even. So, how is that you are only assuming 1% and still you are saying at the end of 6th year you will be able to break even? And the cost which you are saying as capital investment also looks less for me at this present. So, These are my doubts. Over to you, SK sir.
Yeah.
Sir,
Yeah, please go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead. You want to say something?
Yeah. Sir, in the fifth year, the company will be able to capture 1% of the EV market, pure EV market. But during these fifth year, the company has already captured 5 or 6% of the market of hybrid. So overall, the company is able to capture around 7 to 8% of the total EV market, which includes pure EV as well as plug-in hybrid EV. So that's why the company will be able to break even around.
And sir,
6.
beyond 5 years, the company has already established some sort of brand and reputation. So beyond 5 years, it will also leverage that and be able to expand its market share as well.
Okay. Over to you.
Now, the same, except for one person, I don't know anything else. Assuming that I am only in green mobility, why am I waiting for 5, 6 years for me to get my returns? I'm spending crores of money in a lot of things. I mean, I'm not sure whether you really calculated that your promotion investment is there. But you're talking about TV and everything. I'm not sure whether you know what 10 seconds of advertisement costs. Right? So if you really look at all that, your numbers really don't gel for me because it doesn't help me at all. Because as an organization, as Green Mobility, as an organization, I need to see some good numbers, right? Which means I understand first year you don't want to roll out anything, second year rolling out, maybe the market share, because I'm new now, market share will be lesser. But at least from the second and third years, I should be seeing some good growth and moving forward, right? For which there has to be a proper investment which has to be done. Like what Mr. Gururaj said, unless you have a market share of 20%, your P&L is not going to be looking healthy at all.
Yes,
if
sir.
I'm going to be profitable, I need to capture 20% of the market. In the current scenario of the EV markets, and I expect in the future also, because you already have enough players. And new players are also going to come. I'm talking of existing players who are introducing new products.
Right.
Sorry, Manan, you were going to say something.
Sir, the idea behind showing the losses is that if we see the companies like Ather Limited, Ather Energy, and Electra Green Tech, the company are still not generating the profits, and they are been in the markets for around past 8 to 10 years. So on the basis of these assumptions, we have assumed since the company is new entrant in the market, the company will not be able to generate the profits because there are existing players like Tata Motors, which have around 80% of the market share, and other new players like the other existing players like Maruti and Mahindra, which are putting up their new models in the market. So if the competitions are day by day increasing, and moreover, there are also new entrants in the market. So if the company want to enter the market, so it will not be possible for the company to generate the profits for the initial 5 years. As per
Manan, I absolutely understand that. You are fair enough. But as you would have read the case study also says that if you feel the market is quite tight, you don't have to recommend for us to go into the market at all. You understand? You could also say, this is what is going to be the market scenario. You have to reach X number of percentage for you to make a profit. For reaching that X percentage is going to take so many years. If the organization is not willing to wait for that many years, I don't think it's viable for you to go for the smart business. That would have been an ideal solution for me also. Now the call is going to be me. Whether I'm going to take the loss or not take the loss is my call.
Sir, that is true. This is why we have tried to project it with the help of regression. So if we see there is a clear spike beyond 6 years, and if we see that in the 7th year, we'll be able to generate around 150 CRs. So if we see the trend and follow the trend, we can expect to the green mobility company to have a greater market share than what it is expected as per the graph. So this is up to the management to decide if they want to bear losses for 5 years and then go for the higher returns post the 6 years, or we not to go for the project. But we here as the team consider it to be a very profitable return post 6 years. This is why we went ahead with it.
Okay, which one? There are two things. One is that this projection which you are showing me right now, the slide which you are projecting, is based on the current condition of Indian market scenario.
Yes, sir. Very correct.
There are going to be changes in the laws. provided there are going to be a lot of other changes which come into play, then your numbers will start changing.
Yes,
right?
sir.
It may not happen this way. It might be, or it might even reduce. It might even come with a 4 years. That's a different issue. But as a consultant, since I am blind of this market, I'm not aware of Indian market. The suggestion from you is to give a suggestion by saying, if you are going to make this, it's not viable. Let's not go for it. But if you are willing to wait and see how the changes happen accordingly, it might take 6 to 7 years time. Then it becomes easier for a company to take a call. Now, what you have done is you have thrown it to me. And then say, okay, I have given it to you. My job is over. Now you take a call. Then I don't require a consultant, right? I can do my own research and make a call on that. I require a consultant only because I would expect him to give me the solution. Because I'm confused. I don't know the market very well. You understand from where I'm coming?
Sir, one point to my defense is we have been very conservative. Like we have added a few premiums in our expenditure and a few discounting factor in our profit, and then we have got to this profit. So this is not just a mere plus minus. We have added, for example, if we compare with Tata Motors, then let's say the employee benefits are 5%, then we have added 1% extra, 6% to just add to then 1 extra percent of cushion to our numbers. So this is what the risk we have considered in our analysis.
Okay, no problem. Otherwise, it's a very clean presentation. But only thing is, I think once again, based on whatever Mr. Gururaj spoke and whatever I've been telling you, if you guys put your heads together, maybe you will come out with a different number, and your positions can change. And this is only internally you can do. You don't have to worry about sharing with anybody. Internally, for your own kind of academic interest, you can do it. Okay. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Wish you guys all the best. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You
Thank
guys can sign off.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks to all the team for participating in this, and all of them have put really great efforts in collating the data and presenting it well. I mean, based on overall all the 5 criteria which you have mentioned in the case study, the team C is the winner for today. And the college is XLRI.
Thank you for watching. This is Businessline Boardroom Challenge 2023.